Hi guys. As you know, we really have a hard time getting time available to make these videos. So I am here with the wonderful Julie, who is touching me up here for the holiday season so I can look like a presentable human being, and sitting still. So I'm going to get a little bit of video out here for you. Today we are going to talk about holiday tips for your dogs and your puppies to make that a little bit more enjoyable for them, as well as keeping them safe. So I will, I'm gonna, well, she's taking these out. I got a minute. So what we want to start off with, and I've got a little bit of a cheat sheet, but I can't pull up my cheat sheet when I have my phone on the recorder. So I'm gonna have to go by memory here. So the first thing we want to remember is don't just assume that your dog is going to be okay with all of the hustle and bustle with the holidays. You really need to kind of hone in on your dog's personality. Are they a more stressful dog? Are they a more social dog? That's really going to help you to know, are they going to need to be in a crate in another room, or can you let them mingle? But either way, get to know your dog and your dog's personality so that we can set them up for success. The first thing you want to do is make sure that you have lots of treats on hand. Do some shopping when you're out holiday shopping. Remember your dog. Get some dog treats so that you can reinforce good behavior. Get some busy things so that if they have to be out in a crate, or maybe in another room, or in the basement, in the garage, wherever you've deemed is the safest place for your dog during this time, let's make sure that we have things to keep them busy so that they don't feel excluded from their normal routine. So once we've accomplished that, let's talk about, is the dog going to be more comfortable in the home with all of your family around, or do we want to put him in a crate in another room? If you have a dog that's a little bit more nervous or anxious, which some of these dogs are with the COVID thing going on because they really haven't been heavily socialized, they may be more comfortable in your bedroom or wherever it is that you keep your dog's crate. If they just have a room to themselves, whatever, put them in that room, put on some nice, whether that's the TV or some nice soothing music. Be mindful of like scents and sounds. So if you're burning a lot of candles, remember that that's going to send your dog's nose into overdrive, and it really it stresses them out if it's not a normal thing in your household. So everything that you can keep more regular for them, you're going to be better. One of my biggest tips that I want to give you is make sure whether the dog behaves or not, whether you think you have the most amazing obedience or not, make sure that the dog is put up when people are coming in and out. Everyone's really excited during the holidays, and I know things are a little different with the COVID, but most family members are excited to see each other, and it's an exciting time, and we sometimes forget little things, and we don't want a dog to sneak out of the door. I had one of our family members with my ex-husband. They had a very small dog. They were preparing to actually leave to go to a family member's house, and they were taking all of their food and had their hands full, and their little dog snuck out of the door, and it got out in the road and it got hit by a car. So let's try to not let that happen to anybody's dog. So keep the dogs put up when people are arriving, when they're leaving. Anytime you can't have physical eyes on the dog and you know exactly where it's at and there's no possibility that it's going to sneak out a door. If you're leaving the dog in the garage, make sure that if you have garage door openers, that people aren't just randomly opening it. Just really think about your dog's safety during these times. All right, so holiday morning comes around. What we want to make sure we make time to do is exercise our dog. At this point, we want to burn off all that excess energy, both physically and mentally. So if you have time to take them to a new area where you're going to really stimulate their senses, and you're going to wear out not just their body from the walk, but their mind, because it's all kinds of new stimuli, that's the best way. If you can't do that and you just don't have the time, make sure you at least get the dog out in the yard, throw the ball, play tug, whatever your dog's go-to play is. But let's make sure that we do our best to really wear off that excess energy and set our dog up so that we can have a successful day with a nice tired dog. And okay, so I have all this wind in my ears, but it dawned on me that you can't hear that. So I'm going to continue with the video, make use of our time here. So once we have exercised our dog and we know that the dog is ready for the day's activities, we're going to decide where is it that the dog's going to be best. If you want to keep your dog out, I know that a lot of people want to use these holidays as kind of a time to socialize because we've been really limited in the socialization that we can get for our dogs. And that's fine. So make sure that our dog is put up when all of our company is arriving, as well as leaving, anybody going in and out the door. Make sure that the dog is your number one priority in that aspect, that nobody's kind of just coming and going, and the puppy might be underfoot and might escape out the door, because we really, really, really don't want that to happen. And then once we figure that out, so we will decide, maybe you want to put up an X pen in the room where you're going to have your company over. Maybe you put the puppy's crate in there so that if the puppy doesn't seem to be too stressed out from that, sometimes all that noise and excitement can be a good socialization thing, as long as you're continuing to come in with positive reinforcement for the puppy. Don't just throw them in the crate and ignore them. Remember that throughout the day, you're going to need to schedule your, the dog's going to need to go outside and have potty breaks and things like that, depending on how long your get together is. People may or may not be wearing masks, so be mindful that the dog may not understand what that's all about, and you can kind of prepare them a little bit ahead of time by wearing your mask, which a lot of us have been doing, and that way they're a little bit more accustomed to just seeing people in that way. And once our family is in the house, and maybe you want to let the puppy out so that it can say hi to people, remember, take them out to go potty first, because if you have an actual puppy and not an adult dog, that excitement can make them have an accident in the house. So we want to make sure they're exercised, they're pottied, and then if we're going to introduce them to our company, then we will go ahead and do that. But don't overwhelm them. Get them accustomed to a few people at a time. Let the dog go on its own time up to people. Don't just surround the puppy with all these people kind of wanting to be all in his face and things like that. So let the puppy or dog go to people on their own. Some dogs can actually take this excitement and turn it into an aggression. So if your dog looks overwhelmed, just remove them from the situation. Make a positive, if your dog knows, say how to sit, have them sit, give them a reward, pet them, tell them good boy, good girl, whatever the situation may be, and let the dog calmly exit the situation. Don't leave on a bad note, because we don't want that to be the dog's final reminder of what happened when people came over the house. Keep in mind, we are going to want to keep a routine with our dog. Our dog normally has a routine in the house, so we don't really want to deviate from that a lot, even though we have all this activity and all these other things going on. So when we talk about preparing for the holidays and you're out shopping, grab a soup bone for your dog, a raw soup bone. You ask your butcher for them, they should be able to get them for you. And that you can use in the dog's crate, in the X pen. It's something that maybe they don't get all the time, and it'll be a really yummy treat for them. Keep them excited for a long time. You can also get some bully sticks or some antlers, and just something new that they don't have all the time, so that they're really into that. And now keep in mind, if you're doing a bone, they may want to go outside. They may get more thirsty if they're chewing on things. So put somebody in charge of the dog. Maybe you take shifts, but somebody should always be in charge of the dog and checking on the dog, especially if it's locked in another room or in the basement, in the garage, because we don't want the dog to feel like he's being excluded from any type of its normal routine. When we have time, some people leave kind of food and beverages out all the time. Others will bring it out at a certain time. So keep in mind, if your dog is loose and you're going to allow your dog to stay loose, let's make sure that it's safe. None of your family members should be feeding your dog any type of human food I'm back. They shouldn't be feeding the dog things that would be abnormal for it to eat during these times. Just because it's good for us doesn't, and half of the stuff we eat isn't good for us, but it doesn't mean that it's good for the dogs, right? So we want to be sure that they're not getting all of the, like cookies, for instance, chocolate chip cookies has all kinds of bad things. The chocolate alone, the sugar content, many things are not only bad for the dogs, but they're actually poisonous, right? So we want to make sure that no one is feeding the dog if it's going to stay loose, or if it's in an X pen, kind of in the same room. The only thing that the dog gets is its treats. And you may be able to set out a bowl with the dog's treats, and say your dog is in an X pen or a crate, or maybe it's in the same room as your company. Then if somebody wants to go and say hi to the dog, they can simply just grab one of the dog's treats and go over and say, hi, Fido, what a good boy, what a good girl, and just give a treat. And that's a nice positive experience for the dog. We are going to make sure that the dog has brushed up on the skills that he knows. So some of the really key things that we should be teaching our dog prior to these holiday events, and they should know them anyways, but sit, down, and stay. Really simple, basic commands that can help you to control your dog, keep him in a certain position so that he's away from harm. Maybe you're even visiting someone else's house and you've decided to take the dog with you. And while your home may be prepared for the dog to be loose in the house, and you may have it pet-proofed, their house may not be. Therefore, if the dog's going with you, you're going to need that dog to stay right by you so that you can monitor that the dog the entire time that you're there. So the sit, down, and stay are really simple things that we can make sure that the dog is really proficient in. That will allow you to preempt any situation that may happen. So let's work on our obedience. Let's get a nice tired dog, and keep any food items away from dog. Especially, you don't want them eating any meats that could potentially have bones that might splinter. And even household plants are typical, like poinsettias are poisonous to many animals. So we need to make sure that we keep these things out of the reach of our pets, whether we're at home or at someone else's house. If you want to have a nice mannerly dog, let's work on ahead of time not allowing the dog to beg for food while people are eating. Because if you have family over and you have a dog that's kind of sitting there, and we all have Corsos and they just drool, and that can be really unappetizing for a lot of people who aren't Corso fans, drool fans. So let's keep the dog so that it's not sitting around the table begging, potentially drooling. So again, we're going to use our down and our stay. So, the dog can be a little far away from the table. We can place him in a down, tell him to stay, and the dog will remain in that position until we let him up from that position. And that'll make a nice mannerly dog and happy guests. Most of all, don't expect too much. So if you have a young dog that's not socialized and this is going to be a stressful time for them, try and limit their exposure while keeping as much of a normal routine as you possibly can. If the dog is really just going to be stressed out from the people that are over, maybe separate him in another room. Decide ahead of time what's going to be best for your dog, like we've talked about before, and make sure that you don't just leave him in the room and forget about him. You need to make sure that this is a positive experience, and any way, shape, or form, we want to make sure that the dog is not feeling left out and he doesn't feel like he's just been quarantined into another room and he's bored. So let's be proactive in making sure that the dog has lots of toys. We know where the crate or the X pen or whatever is going to be. And even if they are out, some dogs are going to need a break. So take them out, let them potty, put them in a crate, put them in their spot wherever they feel comfortable, and let them take a nap, and then you can bring them back out again later. And finally, we need to talk about puppy proofing your home. So we want to make sure that there's not things that the dog's going to get into. One of our puppy families actually came up with a really, really good idea, I guess, for blocking off the tree. So usually when people ask, what do I block the tree off with? We usually say baby gates are really good to use. Also an X pen, but they're not the most attractive thing. So they did a really cool thing. And if I can, I'll put the picture in here. but they took some pallets and they painted them white like a snow fence, and they placed them all around the tree, and it really turned out pretty, because their concern was they didn't kind of want to ruin the festive holiday decorations with that ugly, gate kind of around it. So you have to remember, whether it's a real tree or not, especially if it's a real tree, the dogs have all these sensors, and they're smelling the tree, and a lot of male dogs are going to associate that with urinating on a tree. So we want to make sure that we really close that off, as well as make sure that the decorations are out of reach. I heard a story about a dog that had got into the tinsel on the tree, and a couple days later ended up with severe complications due to that, and they did end up losing the dog because it ate the tinsel. So let's make sure that supervision is key, and that also we do preventative maintenance so that the dog can't get to the tree, they can't get to some presents that could potentially have food under them. So if you have, even just at your home, your own presents, I mean, dogs want to chew. That's what's fun for them. So we can't fault a dog for getting into a present and chewing up what's inside of it, because that's what dogs do. That's what's fun for them. They take a stuffed animal and they unstuff it. That's just their thing. So let's try to be proactive with that. We will put an enclosure of some sort around the tree so they're not getting into the water that's under there. If you have a real tree that has some chemicals in it, we don't want them chewing on the branches, the lights, getting potentially shocked from any cords. We don't want them getting into the tinsel or bulbs, or there's just so many hazards with a Christmas tree and a dog, right? So let's be proactive with that, like I've said, and set the dog up so that it's not going to get in trouble. And if you're having guests over and they're bringing presents, make sure that those presents are placed out of reach of the dog, whether it's inside your enclosure for your tree or up high, somewhere where the dog can't get it. As well as some presents are going to have food in them, some of them will have chocolate, so we really want to be mindful with those ones, and just put them in a safe place. And if you do decide to leave your dog out for the holidays and you don't plan on putting him up, no matter what advice somebody gives, then make sure that your dog has a place to go. So whether it's a bed, it's a crate, whatever it is, let's just make sure that dog has kind of a safe place where they can go if they feel overwhelmed and stressed out. So if they go on their bed, then you'll inform all of your visitors that, this is the dog's place where he's going to go if he just doesn't want to be bothered. And that'll allow the dog that little bit of decompression time, if he or she needs it, to relax, kind of decompress, and absorb everything that's going on. And then when the dog comes back out, then your guest can interact with the dog again. But give them that opportunity. If you are going to leave them out the entire time, give them that opportunity to have somewhere to go where people aren't forcing themselves on the dog anymore. So I know it's a stressful time for us as well as our animals, and I hope that any of these tips can help. I'll try and think of some more, and if I do, I will continue adding to it. Okay, so in conclusion, we're just going to wrap it up with, let's really be proactive with our dogs. Let's start out with a tired dog and do as best as we can to manage where they're going to be, have a plan in place ahead of time, make sure that they have lots of toys and treats, and keep them away from anything that could be harmful for them. Make sure that they are not around the door when traffic is coming in and out. And if you have one, I'm going to do a video on one because I just ordered one. There was a Black Friday sale for the Fi, I'm not sure how you say it, but it's a GPS tracking collar. So if you have one of those, put that on your dog just to be safe. So that's really about it for today and the holiday tips. I hope that everyone has a wonderful holiday season, and if you have any tips and tricks, you can put them down there in the comments and add to what we have kind of put together. It's just kind of off the top of my head while I'm sitting here with lovely Julie getting my hair done. And I thank everybody for watching. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. That really helps us to know what content people are liking, the reactions. So if you like this type of content, give it a comment, give it a thumbs up, and if you don't already, please subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys. So we forgot, through all this process, in case anybody wanted to see finished product, I no longer have my ugly roots. I got nice curly hair. Julie does a phenomenal job of making me do something with my hair because, as most of you know, it's in a ponytail or in a hat most of the time. So You don't get to see me like this, but on very rare occasions. So thanks for joining us here in the salon today.